We've seen a lot of great work this year, rebrands and redesigns from the past year around the world. So we have two creative teams here, two of the international standouts, to share their perspectives and their great work. So from Dixon Baxi, we have Apora Baxi and Rachel Bradley. And from the Ink Project, we have David Taylor and Warren Powell, who comes from SBS Subscription TV. And I believe that the Ink Project team is going to go first. Come on up, boys. Thank you.
I should point out that Warren Powell from SBS Subscription TV is actually the client. So I'm hoping that that puts a different spin on other presentations that you've seen where either only the client presents the rebrand or only the agency presents the rebrand. I'm hoping that by presenting together and showing the work that Ink Project did and then the work that the client has followed through with his creative services team, that you get a better balance of opinion, or perhaps you'll hear the truth. Perhaps you can ask Warren the truth later. Check the clicker. Australia. This obviously isn't an Australian accent. This is a Northern English accent, but I moved to Australia 12 years ago. It's a fantastic place. If you haven't been, you should come. And this is the national emblem, or the crest. And the reason I'm showing it to you is this is the latest iteration that was designed in 1912 with the kangaroo and the emu. That's not an ostrich, it's an emu. And even the earlier iterations had the kangaroo and the emu in it. Now there's a reason for it. And the reason is that not only is it because they are native fauna, but it's because kangaroos and emus can't move backwards. They can only move forwards. And I think it's essentially what you've got is a mark that has meaning and purpose. And so I wanted to kick off with this to put out all the work that we do, I believe, every mark that we create should have meaning and purpose. And if it doesn't, and it's just an aesthetically pleasing logo, then perhaps you should revisit it. Also, to Australians, this is a menu. Because I believe we're the only nation in the world who actually eat the animals in our national emblem. So if you come to Australia, I'll put the barbie on and I can serve you up. Perhaps you'd like a leg? We are Ink Project, or I am. Ken Lambert was meant to be here, the creative director. Unfortunately, couldn't be here, he's on a shoot. That's our mark, and it's of course based on a Rorschach ink blot. So the psychological profiling of people by showing them ink blots, which I don't know whether you know or not, but that's recently been completely discounted by the psychiatric world. They've said it actually doesn't work. But it was a nice thing that people did for hundreds of years, gave them a reason to lock up family members that they didn't like for being insane. You're all probably seeing different things. That's usually what happens. We show people the mark and they all say, oh, it's I'm not going to suggest anything because I'd be interested to know during the break, if you want to come and have a chat with me, I'd be interested to know what you saw. We specialize in brand and design for moving brands, which is essentially across various media platforms. We deliver strategy, creative and production. Clients choose to work with us to deliver one, two or all three of those things. And our personal brand positioning is we move brands, which of course is, most of the brands we design move and we move brands forward, so hopefully the result actually hits your bottom line. Today we're going to go through the World Movies case study, and we're actually going to try and run you through the project the way that a project gets delivered. So this is where I hand over to Warren, and as the client he's going to talk you through the early stages of the project.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, so a little bit of background to World Movies. It's owned by SBS, which is Australia's public multicultural broadcaster. We broadcast movies in 200 languages. We've got indie flicks and access to coverage of the world's biggest film festivals, from Cannes to Venice. The channel was one of the original channels that launched on the Foxtel platform, subscription platform in Australia 17 years ago. We've got a small niche audience, but they're very loyal. So I'm just going to play you a bit of a montage of the World Movies logo. It sort of takes you through the evolution of the brand. I think it's quite interesting to see how design trends have changed and branding has changed over the years. And this is all prior to the rebrand that we are presenting today.
Are you ready for world movies?
I've got to be careful here because I know some people are in the audience that created some of that work, so I'm not going to be disparaging of that work. So, all beautiful. Thanks, Jens. When I arrived at the channel 16 months ago, there are a number of areas that I identified were challenges that needed addressing. For example, the brand visibility and recognition was very low. Producers were going out of house for every single spot to create bespoke graphics. Obviously, it wasn't particularly cost effective, and it meant that the brand visibility was low and there wasn't any sort of consistency in the brand. That existing logo mark had been in existence for 9 years, and it had some tweaks 4 years ago. So it was quite a long time in sort of branding and design terms, I think. So I'd say we had a small audience, but we weren't tapping into the diverse, multicultural, multilingual audience that Australia has. Our core demo is 55 male, Anglo male. And interestingly, the top rating slot was always our adult movie slot, and the average time spent viewing was about 18 minutes. So draw what conclusions you want from that. They weren't watching the whole movie, let's put it that way. So we conducted some audience research, and that identified some of these areas that we wanted to address. There was a great affection for the brand. People love to say that they watched us even if they didn't. And the issues were around the brand visibility, and some of the messaging was quite confusing. So this is where we engaged the lovely people at Ink Project. So their brief was to create a new strategy, tagline, logo, on-air, off-air package, the whole caboodle. We wanted to make sure that there was some link to the old brands so we didn't alienate the existing viewers. Our tagline at that time was "See what the world has to offer," and that really reflected the explorer brand archetype that we believed that we were. Excuse me. So we put the brief out to 3 different agencies. Interestingly, Ink Project, obviously who produced the new work that we're about to show you, were the only agency that didn't present any creative. They presented us with a strategy, a very strong strategy, and we believed and trusted in that strategy that we knew that they could take it to the next level. So it's just an interesting angle, I think, on that. I'll hand back to Dave now so he can talk you through their process.
Thanks, Warren. Agree key objectives is obviously just where we review the brief and feed it back to the client to make sure that we agree the objectives. In terms of strategy, just giving you an overview of the total process, and I guess the only reason I wanted to show this was to say this probably looks very familiar to the clients in the audience in terms of what your agencies present to you. I just wanted to prove that we do it the same way in Australia. We may be upside down, but we do it the same way. So in terms of strategy, what we really do is we believe that all branding, regardless of whether it's on or off a product service, should begin with an analysis of viewer or consumer needs. And then really very simply what you're trying to do with a strategy is find out what the brand's capabilities are and match those capabilities up with the consumer needs that it can best respond to. The brand capabilities bit is often the difficult part because frequently clients want to hope to be something to the consumer that actually the brand never can be. So we've done a lot of work with banks who want us to make them cool. Sorry, it's never going to happen. Next stage, obviously we deliver concepts. We usually deliver 2 or 3 based on the strategy, so they all come from the same rationale, but they have different creative exploration. And once the client locks into one of those, that's the one that we move into design development with. and that's the thing that gets progressed through into production. So very simple pathway. With this particular project, we knew, as Warren mentioned, that the audience was really 75% male and very Anglophile, and we needed to broaden it out to the group that you see on the right. So a much younger demographic, bring a few more females into the audience if we can, whilst obviously not alienating the current and existing audience. The research analysis, there's obviously a lot of things come out of the research. I've only got 22 minutes to talk to you, so I'm just going to give you what we thought was the key one, which was that it was felt that all the messaging from the channel was too obtuse. It was difficult to understand. People didn't really know, especially particularly what we called the curated time slots. Brand landscape and content review. We knew that the channel wanted to have or retain an art house feel. So in terms of looking at the brand landscape to inform us, we felt that living in this international film festival world in terms of design would suit the channel really well. We questioned the archetype during the process of developing the new brand platform, and we felt that Explorer was actually the viewer, not the channel. Explorer is on a quest for knowledge, searching for understanding, whereas the magician is actually transformative, conscious, expanding, understanding. So the magician's actually delivering the answer to the explorer. So we just said, look, you probably is a bit of explorer in you as a channel, but we feel that's more the viewer. You guys are definitely driven by magician and a little bit of sage. Again, we don't think that there's only one archetype for every channel. There's usually a dominant archetype, but it's supported by others. In the same way that a person with a personality is not just one archetype. We're generally many. It's just that there is maybe one overriding. So working with magician, positioning of transformative, we decided that's really what all of World Movies content is. It takes people on an emotional journey. They hopefully come out at the end of the movie with a different emotional feeling than they had before they started watching the movie. The curated time slots I mentioned, and the fact that they were a little bit obtuse, it was things like they were being promoted as join us to watch, join us for Do Not Disturb, for example. And audiences would think, what the hell does that mean? And actually Do Not Disturb is now named World Movies Adult. And as Warren said, that probably still is possibly the most popular curated time slot on World Movies. But things like Vintage became World Movies Classics, Real Action Fridays just became World Movies Action, and essentially we tried to get the language into a position where we're always talking about world movies and it feels like it's coming from the same place all the time. We changed the tagline to Be Moved. And again, based on the strategy that we developed, we felt that it wasn't just about film being moving image, but it was about the fact that we literally move people emotionally. So let's suggest to them that world movies be moved. And it's a rotating tagline. So we use it for the premieres and adult and box office and so on, and we're allowed to suggest an emotion or an outcome. So be first, be tempted, be entertained, be dazzled, and it always, in the logo resolution, it always settles on World Movies Be Moved. In terms of creative, this is where I pretend to be Ken. Oh, Ken, you made it. Yay. Hello, my name's Ken Lambert. What's actually happening here is we're showing you, obviously, the work that we presented to the client. Now, the reason there's more than one concept here is because whilst we were developing the strategy, we were actually tight on time. So whereas ordinarily what we would prefer to do is develop a really strong strategy that delivers a rationale and a proposition, and then be creative with that strategy and proposition. But on this occasion, short of time, we were developing the creative as the strategy was being developed, and the creative execution was shifting in line with the changes that were being made in the strategy. At the time, that we presented these, we were still exploring different taglines. So we had life in motion, shift your view, and escape with us. And they all anchored back to the strategy that we had at the time. Inspiration for the look of the whole channel. Part of it was the zoetrope. And with the magician archetype, we felt that we had to deliver something magical, and we would, as part of our research, we were going, well, what were magical moments in cinema? And of course, there are lots of moments over the years that could be described as magical moments in cinema, but we felt a really key one was the fact that the zoetrope was the first time that anybody made still images move. And can you imagine never having seen moving image, and then all of a sudden somebody introduces you to a zoetrope and you start to see a man run and a horse gallop? It would have been amazing. The interesting thing is the chap in the top right, I think that's Edward, I can't remember his surname, is one of the three people during the Victorian period who claimed to have invented the zoetrope. Zoetrope's a Greek word which means wheel of life. Or it's actually several Greek words that put together mean wheel of life. The Victorian guys, there was an American, a Frenchman, and an Englishman also, and I invented the zoetrope. And actually it was invented in 180 AD by a Chinese guy called Ting Quan. And Ting Quan actually put images on tissue paper above a lantern and spun them so that the images looked like they were moving. So you can imagine 180 AD, somebody showing you a moving image. So the zoetrope became a really key thing for us. And what we did was we took the slats of the zoetrope and said, imagine if we start to somehow show the channel through the slats of the zoetrope, what would that look like? What would the content look like through the slats of the zoetrope? If we went out and shot stuff, what would it look like? And as a graphic device, what can we do with it? So as you can see, just those 5 marks there, if you actually merge them together, create the new logo. But as well as creating the new logo, we realized they gave us a great opportunity to fracture, repeat, shift, stutter, etc. So all of this stuff we knew we could play with now. So again, some of this stuff hasn't made it through. You don't see it on air. But this was, again, early design development based on the zoetrope. And we also presented these images to the client and said, we've basically made this board for you to suggest that this is the aesthetic we think your channel needs, along with that graphic device. And we think we put those two things together, you'll have a beautiful channel that delivers on your aspiration to be art house and look like an international film festival. Production, we delivered over 120 elements. That's an overview of what we were suggesting the channel would look like. Of course, we delivered brand guidelines, so you get all the usual. I'm not going to show it all, don't worry. The good thing about this device meant that once we delivered to the client, it meant that they could actually shoot original stuff, put it behind the zoetrope, or just use existing content, put it behind the zoetrope, or just create graphic zoetrope idents. A lot of flexibility there, and in terms of the client's size and budget, it's important that they have that flexibility.
This is World Movies.
Bugger. It didn't play in rehearsal, and we've tried really hard. We've tried different file types. It always locks up there. Never mind. So that was a graphic ident, and now I'm just going to show you a content-driven ident.
This is World Movies.
Yeah, it played. Woohoo! And obviously, a promo board. I'm not going to show you classifications and these are all the things we delivered, all 120 elements. What I'm going to do now is just show you a montage of the stuff that we delivered. you. Thank you very much. Ken will be really pleased. I'll let him know that you all clapped. And we also put forward, obviously, in terms of offer, just design ideas for extensions that we recommend to the client for off-print, web, etc., and even patterns on cushions. And now I'll hand over to Warren, who's just going to talk to you about the way that they used all the assets that we delivered, and you can actually see if there's a difference between what Warren and his creative team have done with the assets in-house compared to what we all saw the vision of the brand being.
Thanks, Dave. Still want to get those cushions around the office, by the way, and the wallpaper as well. So here's just a couple of little real-world examples of off-air print ads that we've rolled out, some online ads as well. As you can see, very clear, very consistent, very concise, and beautifully branded. There's no sort of mistaking that it's a World Movies ad. We also launched Australia's first secret cinema, another brand extension in an attempt to sort of broaden the audience to a younger audience. The concept is obviously a secret film in a secret location. It's really successful. We increased our Facebook likes by 320% in that period and doubled our website traffic as well. So it was a real kind of extension of the brand, taking it from on-air into off-air. So I'll just play you a monthly highlights spot. This just sort of gives you an example of how the clear signpost for the viewing has really been achieved and really helped the viewer to navigate their way through our schedule.
This October on World Movies. On Sunday nights, be first with premiere screenings of the hottest new films from around the world, followed by the most daring and innovative of independent cinema. On Friday nights, be thrilled with World Movies Action, the most action-packed films from across Asia. And on Saturdays, the undisputed blockbusters of global cinema. Be moved this October on World Movies Channel 430.
430. Thank you. So we rolled this new look out in August 2011. Feedback was fantastic within the industry. We were awarded the brand was awarded 2 PromaxBDA awards in our local market, Australia and New Zealand, which was great. The biggest sort of success story out of the whole thing was that the average audience increased by 21% since the rebrand. The content hadn't changed. Some of the programming structure perhaps had, but it's just sort of testament to the fact that of the work that Ink Project did and the fact that if a rebrand, it just shows you what can be achieved. So thank you, Dave, and thank you, Ink Project. We're also looking at rolling the brand out into other territories. So if anybody wants to grab me in the lobby later, if you're interested, come and have a chat with me. Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Oh, sorry, this is a montage that Warren and his team created before we came out. And that really is it.